This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
I'm Shamir, and this is the LSQ Podcast.
Hey, it's Jenny LSQ. Welcome to episode 51. I've been a fan of the awesomely uncategorizable music of Philadelphia-based singer-songwriter Shamir ever since I heard his song On the Regular back in 2014, and the albums he's put out since have explored an array of genres, but always demonstrating his innate ability at pop songcraft, none more clearly than his new self-titled effort, which is where we begin this conversation. This is like your 7th full-length album at this point, and you even put out another album in 2020 already. This isn't your only release this year. Cataclysm came out earlier in the year. Obviously, you regarded this as being kind of a statement moment because you decided to make it self-titled, which, you know, just as an observer feels like it's meaningful. So tell me a little bit about just when this group of songs started coming together and how it began to feel like, an important one to you.
I guess it started to feel like an important one to me when I kind of realized that I knew for a fact that this specific record, I was aiming for a more commercial sound. I felt confident enough in the sound that I had been working on for the past 5 years to be able to kind of do it in a digestible way. I think the thing is that a lot of people thought that after my first record that I couldn't do pop music by myself, and that was kind of the truth in the sense that I couldn't do electronic pop music by myself, because I didn't produce my first electronic pop record, but the pop songwriting was always me. I wrote everything, and I know that I have an ear for pop music, and I kind of stepped away because I wanted to just develop my own core sound by myself, because I wasn't able to kind of do that once I joined the industry realistically. I did a lot of stuff on my own when I was young and just kind of just playing around, but I wasn't really able to develop my sound and who I am as an artist. So that's what I was doing, and I was just not worried about making it successful or not, or making it commercial or making it widely released. That's why, a lot of those records in between also, I just didn't do a cycle, I didn't want to. So I knew that I felt comfortable. It was two things. I felt comfortable in my sound, and I knew that I was able to kind of convey it in a more approachable and accessible way, and that I was ready to kind of do kind of a more accessible pop comeback, and show the people that yes, I could do it still, and it's all in the songwriting, and that won't go away. So when I realized that I had the group of the solid ones, I was just okay, I need a good producer, I self-produced, mostly out of necessity, and mostly just because also, again, a part of getting used to my sound and finding my sound and perfecting my sound was also just finding my language in the studio. And I kind of put myself out there for a few producers, and no one really bit, and I was just feel a little discouraged, and I was just okay, well, I guess I'll self-produce. And right when I was kind of feeling like that, that's when Kyle, who worked with Mississippi and Hop Along and so many amazing people, he hit me up himself. He was actually the first producer I think ever in my whole career that was just I like Shamir, I want to work with him, which was just major to me, especially since he already worked with people that I really liked. And I also love the fact that he was like super Philly, and that I can like make the record completely in Philly and like make it kind of like a homegrown thing, because like a lot of the producers that I was hitting up were like maybe like New York or like LA based, you know. And then, you know, he did 5 songs, and when you know, he ended up doing most of the record, I was like, okay, I want the other producers on the record to also be from Philly and just make it like a super like Philly thing. So I got like Maddie Beats, who produced I Wonder with me, who's like, you know, he's like this super fun, like Instagram funny videos like type producer dude. But I had met him in the studio that I work in South Philly, that's like right around the corner from like where I live. And we had hit it off, so I like told him about this project. And then the other song was produced by my artist, who I'm in the middle of cycle now, Grant Pavel. He worked on the song with me. So it's a Philly affair, and I love it. And just like, you know, Philly's so known as like an indie rock city, you know, and I think it's really cool also to kind of like work with all these like quote unquote indie rock dudes, and but still like make it pop.
But when did you first start to feel this creative spirit, the one that wants to write songs? What was the first inkling of that in your life?
Very early on. Very early on. I feel like I was born to be a songwriter. You know, my mom would tell you that I was like writing like little ditties to myself since like kindergarten. And, you know, early on, you know, I mentioned in many of interviews, my aunt, you know, she's a songwriter. A lot of people seem to think that she was successful, but she just wrote songs for fun, you know. She never did it professionally. She just had a group of musically inclined friends that she would invite over, because early on in my life, my mom's a twin, so that's why I was so close to my aunt. She's basically like a second mom to me, you know. Yeah, there's been like a running joke in the family that my mom's twin was supposed to be my mom, so like we're kind of like really close in that way, and especially since we were like, you know, both love music and everything. So I used to like beg her to like let me sneak in the sessions that she would like have in her room, and you know, I'd be like, I'll be quiet, like, you know, I won't, you know, you won't even know that I'm there. And then I was just like sit and watch them create music. So it was always, oh my god, who is like honking right now? I'm sorry. So yeah, I got an insight on, you know, how to write songs early on, and just like seeing like how it's made, like, you know, from the rooter to the tutor very, very early on. So I'm really blessed in that way as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting when someone grows up with an artist in the house who doesn't do it at a highly professional level. You know, someone who does it more for the love than for income from it. It's like, I've met a lot of artists who like, on whom you could tell that was a good influence, because you're like, oh yeah, songwriting is magic, but it's also magic I could maybe do, you know? Yeah. And because it's just happening around, is like, it obviously came naturally to your aunt as well. So when did songs start to, I mean, would you ever just kind of chime in on their sesh and like offer a little?
Oh God, no. I was like 5, 6, 7, you know, very, very early on in my life. But I was writing my own little stuff off to myself. And I remember I just knowing, I guess just having such an innate sense of songwriting structure from sitting in on those sessions, that I didn't quite yet, because I was so young, I didn't quite yet realize that songwriting structure, much like poetry, can be free-flowing as well. But I, early on, when I was like 6, 7, 8, when I was writing my songs, I actually sectioned off the paper for each part of the song. So I did this thing early on. This was my method early on. It's so cute. It's so funny. But I sectioned off the top part of the piece of paper as the chorus, and just kept that there because I knew I would return to it, and then sectioned off the two middle parts for the verses and a section off a bridge, optional if I want it. And it was just like so funny. Like I like drew the lines, like everything, like that's how I section off the paper. But yeah, I just really love specifically songwriting. Like that's just how I started writing, period. You know, like I write a bunch of other things, you know, but it always was songwriting for me first, and then I led into stories and like screenwriting or like
right,
essays.
or just like an instrument or something. Some people just start playing other people's songs on an instrument and then evolve that into, I know some chords now, I can write some songs.
And that's the other thing too. It's also backwards for me in that way. I started writing first, and then I was like, okay, I need to start making my own music. And that's when I decided to pick up the guitar when I was like 9. Like I begged my mom for a guitar.
And what do you think made you attracted to the guitar at that point? Was there an artist you liked who played guitar? Maybe
just I wanted to be a country artist, and also like rock, maybe like somewhere between those two. So I think it initially, because also another thing that my mom would tell you too, is like when I was really young, I used to go up to people and be like, I'm a rock star. And like just flat out. And so I knew I was always gravitated to the guitar. I think I liked a lot of like classic rock at that point. Like The Who, one of the first records I ever got was like The Who when I was like 8 or 9 or like something like that. And I think that's why I wanted to get the guitar. And I think once I started to like get good at it, I wanted to be Taylor Swift. Like I was already kind of listening to country, but like once I saw Taylor Swift, I'm like, she's young, she's dope, she's writing these songs. She started writing these songs around my age too, because like by then I was like 12, and like that's when she started writing her first record. And I was just like, if she could do it, I can do it. So like that was like my like main like inspiration by the time I like knew my chords and like was writing.
Besides being something that just felt like an activity you wanted to do, like was it right away? Did it feel like an important kind of emotional outlet, songwriting and playing music?
I think it turned into that later on once like puberty hit and I was angsty. But I think before it was just I knew I was born to do this, you know, it was just so innate and just always there. And then it really kind of became a real sense of catharsis for me, you know, once I started going to puberty and like feeling things and, you know, and it still is for me now, obviously, you know, but I think once life started to hit and I started to, you know, turn into a fully functioning human, yeah, of course it did.
And what about singing? When did singing start to be something you felt like you needed to do?
So singing also came after songwriting as well, which is funny. I didn't really start singing until like maybe like 3rd grade. That was the first time I joined choir. I think the first and last time I joined choir, because I always had a very distinct voice. And the choir teacher specifically had an affinity for me and my voice, but everyone else made fun of me because it's like, your voice is so effeminate, even then, you know. And so that discouraged me a lot. All the kids made fun of me and like everything. I think he knew that I had something special, because I think people who actually like know singing, you know, understand. But also everyone at this point, you know, at this very advanced school were amazing singers, you know, amazing singers. And so I just felt not good. But that choir teacher gave me a solo. And this was like, so 3rd grade, so I was like 8 or 9. And that was realistically like maybe like the first time that my mom had saw me sing, but I was so scared that I don't think I did that good. And I think I was like kind of like shook, and like my voice was a little shaky. So after the show, I vividly remember like my choir teacher going up to my mom and like kind of like assuring her like, Shamir can sing. Like we like, I know he can, like I swear he can, you know. And I never really sang in public after that. It wasn't until I was like maybe 9 or 10 where I sang for my mom again, and she literally told me not to quit my day job. So that was, I think that lit a fire under me. I was just like, I guess I just got tired of being like beat down, and I just worked on my singing from then on. I just practiced. I listened to a lot of Simone. I listened to a lot of jazz. That's where I really kind of like really, really learned, I think, a lot of technique. I listened to Nina, I listened to Billie, I listened to Ella, I listened to all of like the female greats because, like, again, I always had such an effeminate voice, and it was easy for me to kind of like mimic. And then from there on, I went to like some of the country singers, and I was like, listening to like a lot of early Taylor Swift, but also listening to like Sugarland, who's like, Jennifer's voice is insane. And I think I took a lot from that, but then also like Björk and Tegan Sara, and just like kind of just like grew from there realistically.
So you're just in your room listening to records and then just singing
mimicking.
along and just schooling yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's cool that, it sucks that you had a discouraging experience in the third grade with the chorus, but it sounds like proving people wrong is a motivator for you. It sounds like.
Well, I'm a Scorpio. What can I say?
Oh yeah, there you go. So when did you first start to record your own songs, and how did that go? How did that turn into something that felt like, oh, maybe I could be a recording artist as like my thing?
When I started my band, actually, which is funny as a solo artist, but I didn't get really any confidence until I started my band. I was doing my country stuff. I was, recording that. I was doing that. I think this was like in MySpace days. I think I maybe like put a few songs up on MySpace that I like recorded with my stepdad at that point, because like my stepdad was making his own music. He was a rapper and was like doing production and stuff as well, and basically had like a mini studio. And it just wasn't feeling right. I had fun performing. Like I did like honky tonks and stuff like that, and like I got really good responses from that, but also people were like weirded out because it's just like, why is this weird queer black kid singing country music and don't even have the decency to at least wear a cowboy hat? I was like, I'm not wearing a cowboy hat. Like, why do I have to wear a cowboy hat? Because at this point I have my long beautiful dreads. I'm like, I'm not putting this under a cowboy hat. No. But I love country music, like fight me, So I think that was really jarring, and I think that made me very angsty. And at this point I'm like 15, 16, and that's when I had started my band. And that was really the first time where I just like experienced what it meant to like be a public musician. Like at that point really no one outside of maybe a handful of friends and like my family heard any music. But when I started my band, I got a 4-track, and I was really inspired by the Vivian Girls. I like started my band like a week after I found the Vivian Girls, and I was just like, this is what I want to do. So I got like a cassette 4-track because I saw them record with that at a session once, and I was just like, great, that's how we get that fuzzy sound. Let's go. And and we recorded EPs, and at this time Tumblr was coming around, and we were two really hip looking black kids, so we were promoting our stuff very heavily on Tumblr. And then that's how we started to kind of get a following. We were like in Bitch Magazine. We got invited to South by Southwest. Our first interview ever was with one of the early versions of She Shreds. And so because my other member was a female, so we were really kind of like in the very like feminist punk movement as well. That was like really big like in the Pacific Northwest, and we had all these fans in the Pacific Northwest, but like no one really knew us in Vegas, which was like crazy. But like we were like in all of these like national media outlets. And even took off time from high school senior year to go to South by Southwest because we were still in school.
Cool.
It was so funny, yeah. But at this point we had probably played Vegas like 4 times. Like no one knew or cared about us in Vegas. But when they heard, after we came back from South by Southwest, when they heard that we was at South by Southwest and everything, that's when we finally got an article in the local paper in Vegas.
Did South by Southwest give you some hope that artists that are a little harder to peg into genres, like, look at all of this? I would imagine it was just like, oh, I'll be fine.
Yeah, oh, of course. Yeah, especially because, we were so young. We were 18. We were still in high school. We were so young. And got connected through all of these like other like feminist punks on the internet, and like that's who we stayed with when we were in South by, like they was like, oh no, babies, you can stay with us, and like, and so we had this beautiful community that is still very a part of my life now. Those same people I'm still very close to, and Fiona from the Vivian Girls, it was like she toured with me for like the past like 2 years. So it's so funny just to like how that works out, and that's when I didn't even care about being successful and making it at this point. I was just like, we have our community, and that's all that matters.
And so what moves did you make to have it kind of to turn it into your own thing?
Well, so after high school, I started working a week after I graduated. And so that was really hard, just like on the band. We weren't able to like write and like rehearse as much as we wanted to, because we were like figuring out post high school and adult life, and I was working so much and was like working immediately, and
just like crappy day job kind of situation.
Crappy day job. I got a job at Ross department stores, and that's actually where I wrote a lot of the ratchet stuff. Like I was working the fitting room, and so I had like a lot of like downtime, and I would just write during that downtime. And yeah, so it was just a transitional time, and I think we both kind of made the very honestly adult and mature decision to take a year hiatus, and because we had just released our tape as well, so a year hiatus was like nothing. And we were like kind of like, let's take a break while we're still high, so we just can like build upon that and figure out our lives, and then when we come back together, we'll be stronger than ever, and so realistically that hiatus, but we were like, we still wanted to be creative, so that hiatus turned into me doing the solo stuff. And Christina, who was in the band, she decided to do a rap thing, and I decided to do a pop thing. Because by the time I got to high school, I was really obsessed with pop, because around this time, that's when we kind of got really good alternative pop, because like early on, pop to me was just like everything that was like on the radio, which I really couldn't do. And then by like 2011, 2012, we got Lana Del Rey, and we got Marina and Diamonds, and we got like Natalia Kills, and like those were like the girls for me. I was just like, oh, I see it now, I see it. And I had got a drum machine, so I was just like, I'm about to do some electropop, like let's do it, But I wanted it to be less kind of like how it turned out, like ratchet, and more like a little gothy as well, because I was also obsessed with Zola Jesus, and I think a lot of like those early songs were like very heavily inspired by Zola Jesus above all, but I wanted to like make it more pop still, and and that's how those early like demos from the first Northtown EP and Ratchet came about. I was just having fun, and then I sent them out to very small tape labels just to get a very small cassette run that I didn't have to pay for it myself. And that one of them I sent to was God Mode, and God Mode was just like, no, we're going to invest in you, we're going to fly you out to New York, and we're going to record these proper. And I was just like, free trip to New York, sure. I'm 19, no 18, I'm not even 19 yet. Like I'm 18, about to turn 19, free trip to New York, like, are you kidding me? Like, great. Record 2 songs actually, fly back to Vegas, not knowing the power that they had, because I had no idea at the time that like, Nick from God Mode wrote for Pitchfork. To me, he was just this weird white man who didn't touch me when he flew me out to Vegas, or flew me out to New York, which I was grateful for,
Yeah.
And but I get back to Vegas, and a month later, one of the 2 songs that we recorded is Best New Track on Pitchfork. And I'm just like, I was dumb. I didn't know. I didn't think any of this, would happen. I just was like, I recorded these songs and I just enjoyed the experience. And And then from then on, it was just a whirlwind. I think 4 months later, I was signed to XL, and then boom, we were making the record.
Yeah.
The rest is
it's
history.
wild too, because if you had known that was going to happen, still, it's just like, again,
a bit more.
but you still were, to the earlier point, you're still just, you were working with what you knew at the time and how you thought to execute what you heard in your head. And yeah, like now, all these years later, when you're in the studio, you have a much better idea how to execute what you're hearing in your head to represent it to other people than you possibly could have. Even if someone had told you, oh, you're going to be Pitchfork, whatever, you'd be like, okay, here's the song. The song's the same anyway. You know, you'd probably just have freaked out about it more before releasing it. But when you were in the studio making this album, like looking back now, what do you think are some things maybe you're better at now with the benefit of the experience you've had?
I mean, I guess it's like understanding mixing and how things should sit, and definitely how to record my voice, because recording my voice is definitely a specific thing.
I mean, you mean in terms of just like the mic placement and like the
mic placement, EQing, you know, it's very, it's weird because I think a lot of, the thing about my voice, because it's so high pitched, but it's still very round. I think a lot of people want to EQ the low end out of it so much and have me sound like a chipmunk. And I'm like, no, like that roundness quality in my voice can't be left out. I think to me it's what balance out my voice. So it's like, it's those higher frequencies aren't all you hear, you know.
I mean, it'll be interesting too if your voice gets deeper as you get older, just because everybody's voice gets deeper as they get older. Like, as a singer who's used to having your voice in a certain range, that'll be cool, because then you'll be like, oh shit, it sounds a little different now. It's a whole new era.
The weird thing is, it's like, I'm not sure about that, especially since I stopped smoking. But I will say this, while my high notes, I have reached ease in my high notes, I will say that my lower notes are more stronger as well since I stopped smoking, which is really nice. And I'm able to like weave between my octaves a lot easier. But I mean, I think my voice definitely has gotten raspier as well. Hopefully it gets deeper. I doubt it. I've been holding out a hope for that since I was 15. And I'm not too sure.
Like the episode of Friends where Phoebe has a cold and she can suddenly sing, oh, sexy.
That's happened to me a few times when I've gotten sick, and I've always hoped that it will stick, and it never does. But just like I said, I can reach my lower register a lot easier now that I've stopped smoking, which is weird because usually smoking which is one of the reasons why I started smoking, honestly, because I thought it would make my voice deeper, and it didn't. So I have a song coming out soon with House of Feelings, which is like this collective that I sing with a lot, where I had some of like my lowest notes, I think, in like anything that I've ever released with myself, and I'm so excited about it and like proud of it, because it really was just like really smooth, and like I'm like, yes, quitting smoking was cool.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Since you're new to H&R Block, we'll look at your returns from the last 3 years for any money your last guy might have missed, for free.
I could get money back from last year?
You could. We'll find any mistakes.
Could have really used that 2 years ago when I dated that mistake for 5 months.
Don't leave money on the table. Switch to H&R Block and get a free Second Look review. Second Look is included at no additional cost with the purchase of tax preparation. Results vary. All tax situations are different. Fees apply if you have us file an amended return.
Yes, kids, quitting smoking is cool. When does that song come out?
I think September. I'm not sure. Oops.
So,
I think September.
Maybe before this even comes out. But and what does your songwriting kind of practice look like nowadays? Or how often is there a room you go to, and how often do you just sit down with yourself?
I haven't been writing much these days. I've been producing a lot these days. Haven't been writing much. Don't really care to, honestly. As much as I've read, this is the first time I've been able to turn the faucet off in like a while, and so I'm enjoying it. Yeah. I'm not really trying to write much these days.
No, I mean, and obviously this moment that we're living in is not necessarily the most inspiring, just because it's, it's so stressful, and it's like, yeah, I don't think we're all just doing our best to stay alive. I don't think we're required to be highly productive during this time.
But I'm also productive in so many other ways, you know what I mean? Like, just like I said, I'm still producing, I'm still in the middle cycle, I'm still doing all of these other things. But, I mean, I definitely been feeling inspired, but I'm not, like, pushing myself. Like, I'm not sitting down and, like, trying to write, because, just like I said, it's the first time that, like, I've been able to turn the tap off. I've been writing nonstop the last, like, 5 years. Like, I'm ready to chill, and it's been nice.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, Shamir. It's great to virtually meet you.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is great.
All right. Well, thanks again to Shamir for that awesome conversation. And thank you for listening to episode 51 of the LSQ podcast. On the next episode, out in a few weeks, features an interview with the National's Matt Berninger, who this month releases his debut solo album, and it's amazing. And also there are episodes on the horizon with Tim Burgess of Charlatans and King Tuff's Kyle Thomas. So please do subscribe to LSQ, and you can reach me with feedback and questions at JennyLSQ on Twitter. Thanks again. Talk to you next time.